And welcome back to Pokemon Team Videos. Today's Pokemon Team video comes to us from JRC. What's the time true question? What is Kuwabara's Pokemon team from Yu Yu Hakusho? I think about Kuwabara. You're mushy! Whoa, that's really weird, guys. I'm not going to do that the whole thing. But yeah, I loved watching Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho was one of the ones I grew up on a lot in Toonami back when it was on. Back when it was on during regular viewing hours, not 11 to 3 in the morning. And there's a yawn. Yeah, Kuwabara was he was kind of the regular guy out of the group. Yusuke was special when we learned he was actually part demon. That's why he was as inclined as he was. Hiei and Kurama were demons, but no, he was the only true actual human in the group. But he was a spiritually aware human, and he made his spiritual abilities aware. Not aware, manifest into the spirit sword that he ended up using. So the question now becomes, what is Kuwabara's Pokemon team? So when we're talking about people who have spiritual or psychic abilities, spirits involved, and blades, no offense, but a Honedge seems pretty apt. Yeah, it's kind of cliche. But when you're talking about a guy whose main ability is to use a sword of some kind, well, yeah, as Honedge, being a ghost and steel type, and a sword makes 100% sense. But there's also a little catch to that as well. Whoopsie, moved something else instead. I was moving a different image around. There is another option instead, and that is Doublade. Now, Doublade, you might ask a little bit more, it's like, well, wait, what? But Kuwabara did in fact use twin spirit swords in his fight against Team Ryukai in the Dark Tournament. Now, he has never since, to the best of our knowledge, I haven't read the manga past the Demon World tournament, but he has never since used the double blades again, but he can use two simultaneously. He just doesn't for one reason or another. So a Honedge for his standard sword and the Doublade for his regular sword make 100% sense. Then there's also his Jigentou, which is basically a sword that can cut through space itself. It can literally cut down spatial dimension. It can cut through dimensions, basically. It's a sword that literally cuts space itself. And that posed a bit more of a challenge. Because I've already got the two swords here, or two sword-based Pokemon here, so I'm like, okay, could I go Aegislash with that? Well, no. The problem with Aegislash is that while Aegislash's main body is a sword, Aegislash also carries a shield with it. And that becomes a bit more trickier when you're dealing with characters who use blades, because if you don't have a defensive aspect to the character, or anything that really goes with the lore of Aegislash, it really doesn't make sense to use that. However, there's a couple Pokemon that do factor into the whole space aspect of it. And if you're talking about a Pokemon that could literally cut through a dimension, the fabric of space itself, the answer isn't a Hoopla, which can make a portal between different locations. It's Palkia. Palkia's ability, it's the Pokemon that governs space itself. But its a special attack is Spatial Rend, where it literally is basically causing a blade of space, spatial energy, to damage the opponent and carve through a dimension or space itself. That's basically what Palkia can do. So Palkia is, and because the Jigentou is actually such a powerful technique, it would make sense that a legendary Pokemon would be a representative of such technique. So these last three are a bit more, I had to look a bit more into Kuwabara's actual character for these. Now, Kuwabara is a very spiritually aware person. In fact, he's actually said he's kind of got unparalleled spiritual awareness. When the events of the Sensui arc began, he didn't actually have any abilities because his abilities went into basically hibernation to basically grow and evolve and build up their strength, ultimately allowing him to reactivate his Jigentou again and get his powers back. Now, to capitalize on this, I'm thinking, well, I need a psychic type. I feel like that's a given. A psychic type has to be the Pokemon that I use for this. But what kind of psychic type should I use? Because, I mean, any of them can can essentially be spiritually aware to one degree or another. In theory, being spiritually aware would actually mean they should be able to sense the presence of like spirits, like ghost-type Pokemon or ghosts. But there's not many psychic-type Pokemon that really lend themselves to, ghost-type sensing and all that. So I'm like, okay, let me think a bit more abstract here. And then I'm looking, I'm like, well, there is this option. And I liked this option for two reasons. And the first reason for Espeon being on the team is its Pokedex entry says that it basically uses hairs on its body to sense and predict movements, options, can kind of basically predict things, more or less. Kuwabara once predicted an earthquake that made all of his classmates very fascinated in him. So I feel like Espeon is actually a good choice because of the other option, or other characteristic of Kuwabara that I'll bring up, actually, the fifth Mon on the team to represent, because this was actually the main Mon to represent this aspect of Kuwabara. Espeon fits that description as well. I believe, if I remember the name right, Inkichi, his cat. Kuwabara is an animal lover. He loves his little kitty. And, yeah, like when Yusuke first comes back and Kuwabara actually sees, sees Kuwabara, being, I'll think words here, being manipulated. It turns out, they got this little kitten for him, and they've got Kuwabara's kitten. And obviously Espeon is very cat-like, so that works out great. But with Purloin, I'm looking through all the cat-based Pokemon. I'm like, okay, we got 3 different Meowths here. None of them really work well, but I could use them, I suppose. There's Litten, but Litten's a fire type, and I don't see that really at all. No, that's not an Inkichi. Then obviously you have Meowth. There is Meowstick, I suppose, but it's too powerful, honestly. And then you have, Perugly in his pre-evolution, who I can't remember for the life of me. Glameow. That's it, Glameow and Perugly. But I'm like, well, that's not bad, but those kind of got some add to them. And then I look at Purloin, and I'm like, Purloin is just a cute little kitty. Yeah, it's got that look as it turns into a leopard ultimately, but it's just kind of a cute little kitty. And I'm like, kitty. So there's your Inkichi. And Espeon kind of represents that as well. But now for the last part. And this one actually, when I thought about the remaining aspects of Kuwabara, I'm like, okay, no, this is the given one. Is that he is head over heels in love. It may be two-sided, it may be one-sided, he's just an idiot, with Yukina, Hiei's sister. And there is a perfect Yuki spirit Pokemon in Frostlass. Frostlass is based on a Yukina spirit, or a Yuki spirit, which is basically an ice spirit that leads men to their death. Men and women, leads people, travelers, to their death into the cold. Being a ghost type also lends itself well for the spirit aspect of all that. So that works out pretty well for his final Pokemon team. So Kuwabara's team, in no particular order, is Honedge and Doublade to represent his Spirit Sword and Dual Spirit Sword style. Palkia to represent his Jig and Toad, the ability to actually cut through space itself. Meowstick. Purloin is Inkichi. There was the solid just Inkichi. Whereas Espeon is kind of more the adult Inkichi, because we do see his cat grown up a little later on. It's still only like a year or two old, but he still has that adult cat. But also to represent his spiritual awareness. And then Frostlass to represent his, relationship and love for Yukina. So ultimately, that is Kuwabara's Pokemon team. Yeah! Let me know if you agree with this team or if you disagree. What would your team for him look like if you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know the review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. And I'll catch you folks later. Have a good one.